Hello everyone, Christina Werner here. Welcome to day 18 of the holiday card series for 2023. For today's card, I thought I would create a watercolor card using no stamps or dies. So this is going to be very, very simple, and I'm going to slow down the sketching part so that you can follow along. I'm going to be creating a card with 3 cats on the front. Now, I only have 2 cats currently, so I'm going to paint 2 of them like Sophie and Daphne. And the 3rd cat will be painted like my old cat, Manny, who he died in 2015, so 8 years ago. But those of you who have been around a long time during the holiday card series will remember him. He was the black and white cat that sort of had half of a black face. So here I am starting the very first cat. So first I drew a horizon line, and then I'm just drawing 3 rounded kind of humps. I don't know what else to call them. They're just rounded shapes. The one in the middle is taller than those on the sides. And this is actually very accurate because Manny when he was at his largest, he was nearly 18 pounds. He was a very large cat. He wasn't really chubby or anything. He just was very, very long. He was just really big. Whereas Sophie and Daphne are very, very tiny. They're 8 and 9 pounds. So they're almost half of what Manny weighed. So after you have those 3 kind of taller but skinny humps with a rounded top, you're going to draw on some ears. Just little triangles to create those ears. And we're almost done with the actual cats themselves. I'm going to add on this very, very simple faces. Basically just dots for eyes and then a triangle for a nose. In fact, now that I think about it, I didn't even put whiskers on these cats, and I definitely could have. So I'm just adding some simple eyes and a nose. Now, if you wanted to change this up and make it into a dog, it would be super, super easy. Do a round nose and then do sort of like 2 droopy ears on each side. Keep it simple. Don't do anything too crazy. In front of each cat, I'm going to put a present. Basic boxes. I'm going to have a taller one for the cat in the middle, and then 2 shorter boxes for the cats on the sides. And for one of the cats, I chose to have it be the cat that's on the right. I'm going to have its paws up on top of the box. So I'm just doing 2 little ovals, and then I'm going to do some little bumps on the bottom so it kind of looks like a little paw shape. Super easy. I'm going to keep the other cat very simple, just with the box as the present. So this is the basic sketch of everything I'm going to be doing. Now, if you want to add some fun holiday details, you could add some antlers on top of one of them. Here I'm drawing a bow. It's going to be on Sophie. You could add small little details wherever you'd like. Now, if you only have 2 animals that you want to put on your card, I was trying to think of something you could do with that. Instead of having a 3rd animal, why not have just a triangle, a large, tall triangle as a Christmas tree? That would be a really fun shape to fill in that gap. So you could really customize this to whatever pets you have at your house. Okay, so I'm just finding a few more little areas, adding some details on the ears, and then I'm going to be ready to start painting. So the paint set I'm using today is from Prang, and it is a very inexpensive watercolor set. I think I got this for $3 or under $3. And I'm first going to make a very pale gray. I'm going to paint the 2 cats on either side first, and their bodies are just going to be a plain light gray. I'm not going to do any shading or anything like that on most of this card, actually. Just doing flat washes of color and letting that texture of the watercolor paper show through. So after I had that, I tested it on a scratch of watercolor paper, and it looked nice and pale. So I went in and started painting. Now, I did speed up the video for the painting process just so I could talk you through it and not have it take too long. But I did want to show you it from beginning to end. So like I said, I'm not doing much shading. I'm just trying to get that color on there, getting a nice flat wash. I also went around the ears, and then I'm going to do the other cat. going to do the same color on this other cat. It started to go on a little bit darker, so I tried to save that a little bit. And as I paint each of these cats, I'm avoiding the triangle that is the nose, and I'm just trying to get that color spreading all the way across. So after I had all of that, I mixed up a nice pale red, and I just put 2 dots, 2 circles on each of the cats. This is going to serve as blush. That's probably why I forgot to even do whiskers later. But I just added pink on their noses and also to the interior of their ears. I then painted the inside of the bow just a little bit, since I realized her head was still visible through the loops of the bow. And then I used my heat tool to speed along the drying process. You could definitely just let this air dry. I was just impatient and wanted to get on with the painting. So now I'm going to go in and start painting some details on the cats. So like I said, this one on the left is Sophie. She has sort of an M shape on her forehead. And then Daphne has 3 vertical stripes on her forehead. So I just painted those. So those who know me could pick out which is which on the cats. Added a little bit of a darker area above the paws just so it would differentiate between the paws and the body of the cat. And then I started painting Manny in the middle. Now he's going to be a really simple painting. I just added that black to half of his face, and then a very, very pale gray just around the outer edges, since he was mostly white except on half his face and his back. I'm mixing up a nice red shade that I'm going to use for the bow on top of Sophie's head. And I'm also going to use that red shape for the present in front of Daphne. So I wanted to have these presents have a little bit of detail on it, but not much. So I thought I'd bring in just a little bit of a darker shade down at the bottom and let it fade up to a lighter red at the top. And I'm going to do that for the other 2 presents as well, by having kind of a darker shade at the bottom and a lighter shade at the top. So for Sophie's present, I thought it'd be nice to have it be green. So I've mixed up a nice lime green that I'm starting at the top of the present. Then I'm going to turn this around and add a little bit more of a true green at the bottom. And this gives it a kind of an ombre or gradient look. For the present in the middle, I'm going to have it be more blue, almost teal. So I'm mixing up quite a bit of that blue into the greens and into the teal, and just trying to get it more and more blue. Eventually I had to clean off my palette so that I could get a nice clean pale blue, and then bring in a more deep blue to blend it into the bottom. Okay, we're almost done with all of the painting here. I'm going to add a little more blue at the very bottom of that present and have it kind of go up. All right, so I thought it'd be fun for the background to have kind of a wobbly shape, kind of outlining the area, so I don't have to have the paint go all the way to the edge of the watercolor paper. So after I drew in that wobbly shape, I created a really, really dark blue shade. And this took actually quite a bit of mixing because the black was very, very strong, and I had to just keep adding more and more and more blue so that it didn't look, like black. I wanted it to look like a deep, deep blue. So after I'd mixed the color I wanted, I brought it over to my project and started painting. And you can see that it's not black. It's a very, very deep blue shade. And I just tried to keep a little bit of a paint pool at the edge of where I was painting, because as long as you have that wet area, you can continue to add more and more paint, and that helps reduce any brush strokes you might see. So I'm adding in those areas right around the cats, and if they did have some like harsh lines, I tried to paint over those areas again and kind of spread it out. And I brought that down to the other side as well. So I just finished painting the background. I'm going to hit this with my heat tool so that I can move on to adding some fun details to this painting. All right, so I'm going to use a black pen and draw in the eyes. I wanted the eyes to be nice and black. You could also just use a little bit of paint to do this, but I wanted these eyes to be very, very small. And with the paintbrush I had been using, I knew it would be a little bit hard to do that. So I came in with a black pen And you could use any black pen for this because we're done with all of the painting. It doesn't even have to be waterproof. And then I grabbed a white gel pen, and I'm going to add some details to each one of these presents and also to the background. I'm going to keep this video footage at real time so you can see how slow I'm using this white gel pen. A lot of times I hear from people saying, my white gel pen is skipping. I can't get a solid line, or I can't get it to look really nice. So first of all, I'm going to recommend that you use a Jelly Roll number 10 bold pen. It's my favorite. I also like the Uniball Signo Broad. Both are really, really great pens, and they draw at about the same thickness. Now, I really like the Jelly Roll because it has a little bit of a more solid line. I don't get as much skipping versus the Signo, but the Signo is also really great. The main thing you have to do is just remember to slow down and don't draw too quickly. I think that's mostly the main issue when people have problems getting a solid white line from their gel pens. That, or the gel pen is just a little bit old. But I've had this gel pen, gosh, I don't even know the last time I replaced my gel pens. And I've stored them horizontally and vertically and like all different ways. And they seem to work pretty well. And I think some of that is because I use them fairly frequently. So there isn't ever a long period of time where they're not in use, where the ink could kind of dry on the tip of the pen and then cause clogging. When that does happen, something you can do is kind of scribble the pen onto the palm of your hand and keep going until you can get some of that ink flow. The warmth from your hand, and maybe also some of the oils from your hand, will help lubricate the little ball tip on the brush or on the pen. And that really does seem to help. So when I brought in these snowflakes or these dots, I did add some over top of the presents and the cats so that it does look like the whole entire scene is filled with snow, not just behind them. So I brought in some strategic little dots. I think it looks really great. And if you have any spots where you've, had a boo-boo or had a little mess up, this is a great way to disguise any of those little spots. Just put a snowflake on top. I love how this is turning out. The only thing this card really needs is a simple grading. And you could really do whatever grading you'd like. In fact, there are some stamp sets out there that would work great for stamping right below this seed. But I'm just going to pencil on a phrase. And my favorite for cards like this is Meowie Christmas. So cute. So I penciled on the letters. I kind of spread them out so they were a little bit more stylized. And then I used that same black pen and went over my penciled letters. And then I used an eraser just to erase the pencil. So the card design is done. It's just time to put it on a card base. So I put some 1-inch wide Altenew tape on the back. I love this tape for adhering watercolor paper directly to card bases because it's super, super strong. And it's really going to stick it down to that cardstock. So if there's any warping at all, it's going to help with that. So I taped that down to my card base. And then here is the finished card for today. Super simple and easy. I did this card in a total of 40 minutes, maybe give or take a little bit. And I love how it turned out. So that's day 18 of the holiday card series. Please come back tomorrow. I'm going to be doing mail call for November live here on YouTube at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. That's Saturday at 2 p.m. And then on Monday, I'll be back for day 19 of the holiday card series. Once again, a live session. So please come back on Monday and join me at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.